I'm pleased to be here with you. I've got Facebook over here on the camera. LinkedIn is over there. YouTube is over there. And my Facebook business page, Fitness Jones Training, is over there. But it is approximately 8:05 a.m. in beautiful sunny Charlotte, North Carolina. I've got a quick and dirty live broadcast for you. For those of you that don't know who I am and what I do, first, my name is Ren. I'm a certified personal trainer, certified corrective exercise specialist, both through NASM, but I'm also a certified level 1 and level 2 nutrition coach through Precision Nutrition. I coach exclusively midlife women. Unfortunately, I lost my mother and both of my sisters, all three of whom ran into health issues during midlife. That's the population that I serve. So I try to keep you as healthy as possible. I'm going to give you a quick and dirty live broadcast today. We're going to talk about something that you see quite often on social media, and this is the concept of calorie tracking. I'm going to break down the basics of it, and then I'm going to tell you why I actually choose not to do that with my clients. No shade to the calorie counters. I'm not here to talk you out of anything that's working well for you. I am not in the convincing business. Retired from the convincing business in 2017, but we are going to get some good information today. And if there's a question or two out there, man, we're just going to dive into it. I've got to pay the bills really quick because this is my living. I'm currently enrolling no more than 4 women in midlife that want to get control of their health, but want to do that without restricting food, without counting calories, and without beating themselves up in the gym. I've been working in this space online since 2014, and I'm offering an online program. It's a signature 15-week program for women in midlife. Now that I've said that, and the enrollment ends on Sunday. Now that I've said that, let's get into the meat and potatoes, no pun intended, of what we're going to talk about today. Let's just start from a high-level view and just talk about how to properly track your food, how you calorie count per se. So the concept of calorie counting is typically based on one or two: either someone who's trying to actively gain weight, typically, or someone who's trying to actively lose weight. And when I say weight, I mean losing it, I mean body fat. When I say gain weight, typically on the gaining end, it's a desire to gain muscle. In either case, it requires either a calorie deficit or a calorie surplus. Now, what do you mean deficit and surplus, Ren? Speak English, young man. I will. Well, I'm not so young now. I turned 50 last week. But I am going to speak English. In this case, we're talking about the number of calories that you consume daily that would keep your body at the same size that it is. That's called your maintenance amount. Now, we don't really actually know this for sure, so we're estimating it. We would need some fancy scientific equipment to know exactly how many calories per day your body uses to stay the size that it is. And since we all don't have access to that super fancy equipment, we use some estimates. That estimate is called your TDEE, your total daily energy expenditure. What we're doing here is we're trying to figure out how many calories your body utilizes in the course of a day by estimating a few things. Estimating what your average calorie amount might be due to your height and or weight currently and a ballpark of your age. We're also estimating based on the type of activity that you tell the TDEE calculator that you do. So it'll ask you, is your job very physically demanding? Like, are you a construction worker or do you sit all day? It'll ask you, how much on average, weekly or per day, would you say you exercise? And the total daily energy expenditure calculator will take all those answers that you give it, and it'll come up with a number. It'll say, we estimate that this is around the amount of calories daily that your body needs to stay the exact same size and weight that it is now. Once you have an estimate, and remember this is an estimate, once you have an estimate of what your body needs daily to stay exactly the way that it is now, you can then play with the number and say, okay, if I want a smaller body, conceivably, I need to eat under that amount of calories per day. I need to reduce the amount of calories that I eat from my total daily energy expenditure. If I want to gain muscle, gain size, I need to eat over that amount that we've estimated is what what will keep my body the same size, weight that it is now. That's the basic concept of your total daily energy expenditure and figuring out how to arrive at your calorie surplus, slightly more than your body would need to stay the same size, or your calorie deficit, slightly less than your body would need to stay the same size, in which case we estimate that you would lose weight if you ate that amount of calories. I hope that makes sense. So we're just first estimating about how many calories per day would it take for your body to be the same size it is day after day. And then that's the number that we either subtract from to find a slight calorie deficit, or the number that we add more calories to create a slight calorie surplus. Here's the second part of this equation, and I'm going to lead you right into why I do not do this. I don't use this method for the women that I coach, who are women in midlife. So the second part of this equation is, now that I've figured out that on average, for example, if I eat 2,500 calories in a day, my body will stay the same size. Now I can figure out how many I want to subtract. One error that we make here is subtracting too much, right? You don't want to go, this isn't simple math. This is math and how bodies exist in the physical universe, right? With a human inside here, there's a soul and a brain and all that other stuff. So a lot of times people will say, okay, so if I eat 2,500 calories in a day, I can stay the same size. I want to reduce my overall body size. Your choice. I don't decide that for people. I help my clients. I don't dictate to them. But if that was your choice, you said, I want to lose some weight, I need to eat under that 2,500 calories, so I'm going to take 1,000 calories off, and I'll get there faster. Well, that logic is like saying, if I bake a cake for 1 hour at 350, if I bake it at 700, I can bake the cake in half the time. The real universe doesn't work like that. You're going to get charred cake batter, and that's not the goal. And so is the situation with your body, right? You don't just subtract way more calories than what's normal, because you're going to be the charred batter, my friend, right? You're going to burn yourself up and out and through. You're going to go supernova, big, bright, shining star. So that's not what you want. So the first thing you need to realize is you create a slight calorie deficit and follow that for a while, checking in the oven every once in a while. How's that cake doing in there? So you take a slight calorie deficit, maybe 200 calories, maybe 250, 300 at the most. And then you observe for a while, right? If you're going to increase your calorie count, you don't say 2,500 calories a day. That would keep me in the same physique that I'm in. I really want to grow. What I hear often, and I don't mean this to be misogynistic, but this is what I hear a lot. Ren, I want to grow a butt. I want a booty, Ren. Okay, you probably need to eat more. Okay, I'm going to eat 2,000 calories extra per day. Wait a minute. Slow down. So we have to be mindful that rushing, right, speed and your physical body don't really mix, unless you're Usain Bolt or Sha'Carri Richardson and you're trying to run faster in an Olympic event. Other than that, speed will usually compromise your health. Usually it will. Speed is not the goal. Sustainable results are always the goal, right? So let's start there. So now we have a little bit of an understanding of how a calorie count works when people are talking about you need to track your calories on the internet. That's what they mean. Now that you have the number of calories that you believe are sustainable for you in either direction, either in terms of growing more tissue on your body, eating it in the surplus, or in terms of removing tissue from your body, probably fat, reducing your calories, going into a calorie restriction. Well, now you've got to figure out which foods out there in the universe and in what quantities will add up to whatever that calorie number is. This is where you enter something like MyFitnessPal. It's an application that's got a listing of foods in it so that if you're measuring the amount of, let's say, your favorite breakfast cereal. I like cereal. You don't have to like it, but I love it. And you measure a cup of it on the side of the cereal box or in the app, MyFitnessPal. You can enter in that particular cereal and you can enter in how much of it you've eaten, and MyFitnessPal will track the amount of calories that you've consumed in that sitting of that thing. Of course, this can get tricky if you have a casserole dish, right? It's got a few different things mixed in it, and it may be a little bit harder to quantify. Effectively, this is how you go about the business of tracking your eating, tracking your calories throughout the day. And at the end of each day, and perhaps at the end of each week, you can look back and see, for my calorie consumption goal that week, how close or far away from it was I, and can I be consistent with this methodology? One or two things is going to end up happening. For the woman in midlife, the people that I coach, here's the outcome that I see typically. Maybe one of three things. The first thing that's going to happen is you're going to end up eating the same thing repetitively. I mean, no harm, no foul. It's just easier if you have a busy life to figure out your calories at one time. Yes, it's hard to sustain, absolutely. And that's, you know you read my mind, because that's exactly where I'm going with this conversation. So one of three things usually happens with a woman in midlife who's busy and taking over the world, as you ladies are, and calorie counting. Either A, you have to continue eating the same thing repetitively, and you sort of get weary of it, right? Because it's just easier to figure it out once and then say, okay, I know what calorie count this type of breakfast is, so I'm just going to keep eating this type of breakfast. So that happens. The second thing that happens is it becomes so tedious that you fall off of that calorie counting wagon. No shame there. I mean, it's difficult. It can be difficult every time that you want to eat, that you have to do an algebraic equation to figure out what this meal consists of. You may not always find yourself in a place where you have the time or the temperament to deal with that. Absolutely understandable. You're talking to a coach that when he came into the business, I was absolutely giving people calorie counts, and in some places writing complete meal plans, which is the third thing that will typically happen. You may reach out to someone for a complete meal plan, right? Hey, coach, can you tell me what to eat on this day, and that day? Or you follow some methodology that gives you a points system, or like the old school Beachbody had the 21-day fix, and they had containers for different types of foods, a container for carbs, a container for proteins, a container for veggies, a container for fats. And you were allotted so many containers of any one thing during the course of the day. A lot of you are familiar with Weight Watchers and their points system. You have a guideline and you look up what you're eating and you figure it out by points every day. So that's usually what happens in the case of calorie counting. I don't talk poorly about calorie counting, nor do I talk favorably about it. I just know that practically for the women that I'm coaching, again, women in midlife, typically my clients are 38 and up, right? Typically there is some type of family that they are negotiating their time with, right? They got some kids, a spouse, etc. Typically, they are the busiest that they've ever been in whatever their work is, whatever type of industry they work in. They've risen through the ranks because they're dynamic, of course. Typically, there is an introduction to the perimenopausal phase of life, right? Typically, they're a little bit less tolerant to stress at this moment. Typically, their time is reduced, right? The time under which they have to make critical decisions is reserved for larger decisions in their lives. Hopefully, you can start to draw the connection to why I don't ask my clients to calorie count. It may not be practical in the context of their lives. I know about the menopause spectrum because I have 3 different course certifications for menopause health and fitness. I know that another menopause situation that's common is the cognitive adjustment that's based on the hormonal changes of estrogen fluctuating. Point blank period, women are having a more challenging time with cognitive function as their brain is shifting through the menopause spectrum. Now, this isn't something unusual or unnatural. It's not something that's indicating that they are less than or not qualified. It's just the reality of the physical changes that are happening to their brain at this moment. Great book by Dr. Lisa Mosconi called The Menopause Brain. If you've not heard of her, if you've not read that book, highly suggested. She goes into great detail about the shifting that's happening to women's brains through the perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause spectrum of their lives. And I know that adding complexity at this time in a woman's life does not allow her to more simply attain her goals. I want to simplify the process so that the brain power that this amazing dynamic woman has is reserved for very important things. I have a tendency to teach habit-based nutritional intervention. So there's nothing wrong with calorie counting. The challenge for the woman in midlife is that she may not have the time. The challenge is that she may find that it adds to her level of stress, her overall stress load. We call it load of stress, ALLOSTATIC, allostatic load. It may add to her allostatic load. It may not be practical in the course of her day, right? Which may lead her to not eat as well or not eat at all if she can't control the specific food items and calories. It may also lead to a restriction binge cycle where she's trying to be good with her food. I don't believe in good food or bad food, just choices and habits. But she may be trying to be good with her food and strict with her numbers, and that may cause someone hits one of those dominoes and all the dominoes fall down behind it. So that can be problematic for women at this stage. What do you advise, Ren? Well, number one, you can always still choose to do it. You can white knuckle, you grit your teeth through the calorie counting. Number two, you can use an alternative method. I teach habits like eating slowly. I teach habits like, and it's not something that I created. I didn't invent eating slowly as a means of better nutritional habits. But you can choose eating slowly. You can choose things like incorporating protein and prioritizing it on your plate. Protein fills us up, keeps us satisfied. We're less likely to eat a lot more or extra food when we're eating protein. Protein with fiber keeps your blood sugar levels more in line during the course of the day, which also will keep your cravings in check. We can choose things like making sure that we have 5 different color servings of fruits and or vegetables in the course of the day. I know that's going to contribute to happy gut microbiome, the bacteria in your gut. If you're feeding it good vegetables and good fruits, it will cause you to have a better relationship with food, typically because there are bacteria in our gut that love to eat processed food, sugars. And since the gut controls the brain, we'll find ourselves deep in cravings more often than not. What I want to get across fundamentally as I wrap this up is that there's nothing wrong with calorie counting, right? The challenge is, yeah, hopefully better bow too. That's a great statement. There's nothing wrong with calorie counting for women in midlife. The challenge with calorie counting and women in midlife is that it may not be practical for the lifestyle that they're living. It may not be easily integrated into your life. Number two, it can restrict your nutritional choices if you're going to eat the same thing over and over to simplify your food choice. And that may reduce your ability to get a wider spectrum of fruits and vegetables, which is going to help your gut bacteria, help you feel happier longer. A lot of stress comes with the perimenopausal phase of life. I understand that, even though I can't experience it as a man. I want to be intellectually empathetic. That means I want to understand exactly what's happening from a scientific, educated basis, but I also want to be able to empathize with the fact that it's not always just as simple as do this thing or eat this thing or track this thing. These women are, again, at the highest level of importance in their industry at this point in their lives. They are also in a sandwich generation situation where they are perhaps caring for their own offspring at the same time, caring for an ailing and or aging parent. They are also encountering a differentiation in what typically works for them in terms of exercise and nutrition, and the fact that it no longer works the same way, and that is a jarring experience. They are also going through the experience of feeling, in some cases, not all, in some cases, somewhat betrayed by their body. Adding a rigid calorie counting protocol to those set of circumstances, from my perspective, would come from an ignorant place where I'm trying to use a generalized methodology instead of concentrating on the woman in front of me at the time and what she needs and how I can help. Professionals simplify your life, ladies. They don't complicate it. So if you reached out to a coach for help and you find yourself in the quicksand of complexity, you've probably taken on a process that's not in line with how your life actually works at the moment. Let's be practical. But it's also not in line with the goals that you want to achieve and the newfound situational adversity of being in midlife and making your way through the menopause spectrum. So, I said all that to say, nothing wrong with calorie counting. There is an alternative. There are many alternatives to doing it, and it's not necessary that you track your calories, but teaching you a different way requires some patience on your part, because it's really simple. It doesn't require complexity, but it requires patience, and educating on this method of reworking your relationship with food, it requires patience on the part of your coach too. It's not a quick fix, but it is a much better permanent solution. I didn't create these methodologies. I'm just here to talk about it because I see so much information online, social media specifically, about you need to track your calories. You need to know exactly how many macronutrients, how many carb calories, how many protein calories, how many fat calories, and that's not necessarily the case. You do need to have some understanding of your eating patterns, but any program that talks to you about what you eat and never goes into talking to you about why you eat is ultimately going to fail you, because understanding the amount of food that you should be eating in a day doesn't help you unlock the understanding of what your choices are typically, why you choose the things that you do, and how you might reestablish your relationship with food. I've got to pay the bills one more time, and I'm out of here. My name is Ren Jones. I have a signature 15-week program for women in midlife. It's called Women's Liberation Movement, because I want to free you from all the rigid rules and practices that have failed you, quite frankly, for the last 20 years. If calorie counting works so well, you wouldn't still be calorie counting at 38, 40, 50, 55. I will not teach you how to be a 75-year-old who counts the number of almonds that she eats, ladies, right? Practicality is it probably hasn't served you that well, which is why today you'll probably have some sort of maybe a slightly neurotic relationship with food. If you would like to liberate yourself from that, I'm taking on 4 more clients this week. Before the end of the week, my enrollment ends on Sunday. We'll start our orientation week next Monday. And if it sounds like my 15-week program might be a good fit for you, if you want to work with a menopause-informed through 3 different certifications, personal trainer, corrective exercise specialist, level 1 and level 2 nutrition coach, then this may be a good fit for you. DM me the word live, L-I-V-E. Watch your DMs because I'm going to DM you back if you send that to me. And I'm just going to inquire with you about a few things, and we'll see if it might be a good fit. Again, my enrollment closes on this Sunday. I'm taking 5 clients, but I've already got 1, so I've got 4 spots left. Looking forward to talking to you. Thank you for rocking with me this morning. Instagram, Facebook, I appreciate you. Have a great week, ladies. I'll see you soon. And that's a wrap.